So a lot of our crew was actually bilingual, which is
Okay,
really
nice.
helpful.
Yeah,
Really
yeah,
helpful.
nice.
But even then, like, they are bilingual, but that doesn't mean they're fluent. So it is helpful because you can communicate on a basic level, especially within their job. Like, like sound. You could be like, are we good? Did we get a good take? And, he might not be able to speak very well, but he does understand what I'm saying to him. And he's like, yeah, we got it.
Welcome to The Practical Filmmaker, an educational podcast brought to you by the Filmmaker Institute and Sunscreen Film Festival, where industry professionals talk nuts and bolts and the steps they took to find their success today. On today's show, Sydney Tooley gives us her update on Sun Moon, her directorial debut, which she just wrapped principal photography in Taiwan. Find the full transcripts and more at thepracticalfilmmaker.com. I'm your host, Tanya Musgrave, and we are a day after the festival. You heard Sydney most likely on the live panel that we did at Sunscreen Film Festival in our previous episode. But to catch everybody up, she just wrapped up principal production on her directorial debut, Sun Moon, that filmed both in Nashville and in Taiwan 7 months later because of COVID. We all love that. And she's here to give us some updates. Sydney. All right, so you get the call that you're able to go over there, and you go over there. Catch us up.
I'll backtrack just a smidge because a lot of people don't know exactly how you get over there. They think like, oh, you get a call and you leave. This is not true. You have to go figure out how your visas are going to work. They were like, well, we're going to get your visas, but we don't know when, and we don't know how much time you're going to get. And so I drive to Atlanta with the passports because they're like, just send in the passports. I'm like, okay. So I drive down there and I make friends with the woman at the immigration office. And she and I are talking and I'm like, man, I just love Taiwan so much. Like it's just everything about it's just amazing in this project. Da, da, da. And by the end of that meeting, they were like, well, we think we can do something for you. And I was like, okay, good. Always go in person to meetings because it's very helpful.
It's really amazing what can be accomplished when you're actually standing in front of somebody and waiting for their actual task to be done, as opposed to an email. Always call, but even better, go in person.
Oh yeah, always go in person because you can really gauge how they feel, and then also maybe they'll like you. Who knows?
Yeah.
And so, we get that done. Visas come in. I left 4 days before the rest of the crew to make sure that our pre-pro was done because we really didn't have a lot of time in pre-pro. Because you're in quarantine for 2 weeks. I loved quarantine, except for 2 days of it.
Yeah.
But quarantine was great because, well, first of all, it's kind of safe because you're stuck in there. So production meetings would start at 8 a.m., and go till 9 p.m. Which that's exhausting, but it doesn't feel real yet. You just feel like you're standing on the edge of jumping off the cliff because things are moving because people are making them move, but you haven't stepped out and actually have to do it yourself and manage all of that.
Yeah, but it's kind of forced focus.
Yeah, totally. And it was really nice to have that. There were days where I thought I was going to lose my mind, like the 3rd day and the 8th day specifically, and the 11th day. Those 3 days were they're just soul crushing all of a sudden. You're like, I'm trapped in this box. It's more of not even production stuff. It's it is, you are doing production stuff, but it's also but I'm stuck in a box. I need to get out. And and you haven't seen a human being in 2 weeks. You haven't heard a human voice outside of an automated voice through your computer, which you don't realize what toll that takes when you can't hear someone. Luckily, our crew could kind of see and hear each other out the windows. So we would every morning be like, you guys okay down there? Okay, good. All right, cool. I'm okay. And then I'd go over and I'm like, I'm not okay. But they don't know. It's fine.
So after quarantine, you guys hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm. We get out early and we go back to the school and I have initial meetings with the school. My parents were heavily involved with the production of this. Yeah, my parents live there. So my dad essentially controls the campus more or less financially. So he's in a high position. So he's actually really important to the whole thing. Also, both parents were just every day. I'd be like, Dad, I need coffee. And he'd be like, okay. And he'd show up so that I could have some sort of something to keep
Good
going.
old dad.
I know. And a lot of people don't know, but he had a heart attack right before we went. So in Thanksgiving, and had 2 heart surgeries. And so it was really crazy going over there and being like, he's still alive. Okay. So there's
So
all
you
that,
hadn't
like,
seen him?
I hadn't seen him
wow.
in 2 years. Plus, he had just had this heart attack and it had like
Wow.
a bunch of heart surgeries, and it was like really scary. And so there's a lot of emotion coming into it, being like, my dad's still here.
Yeah.
And also it was just like really exciting to have him like on production days and like being able to be there while I was directing my first feature. So that was really cool.
That's really special.
Yeah. And he like made everything run with my mom. My mom also like made everything run. Both of them just every day. So
family affair. Yeah.
So we start working on the campus. We have a meeting with the school. They're like, we have the schedule. We know everything is going good, you know? And I'm like, okay.
So how many days did you have in between quarantine and the start of principal?
We had about 5 days. 3 of those were without the rest of the crew. We got out on a Friday and we started on Wednesday.
The whole production was how long? I think
18 days in Taiwan, and then there were 6 days in America.
We were talking after we had the panel. I think we were just texting. We were at the hotel, and you were just like, this is kind of helping me start to process everything.
You have to take into consideration, like, before even production, because, everybody on production is like, these 3 weeks were amazing, and everybody's crying, and it's beautiful. But, nobody really thinks about, like, the 4 years of doing this. From conception and writing every day and 2 years of polishing and then COVID pausing everything, and then maybe we're going to go. And then on top of it, you have the political climate right now where it's like, is there going to be a war in Taiwan? Is China going to come over, and can we go over there? And then mid-production, you have the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So now everybody's panicking because you are in what could be a war zone at this point. And so all of that is a lot to process. And then you get to wrap, and, everyone's like, yes, it's exciting, call wrap, And I call wrap, and I just had a full meltdown because it's like 4 years just, like, slaps you in the face, and you're like, what do I do with this? Like, and I have to go into post still, but I've accomplished this thing, but you can't, the weight of it just sinks on top of you. Like, all of this stuff you've been like
relief
carrying.
Or when you say weight,
maybe some relief to be like, I did it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just, like, you're like, yes, I did it. Yay. But also I'm like, this is so beautiful. But at the same time, it's just like, now, how do I process the last 4 years of doing this and my life's work for this long? It's not done, but it's not, you can't comprehend what you just did. Like, you're just grinding. So one thing my actress told me that was really helpful throughout the project, because to me, I'm just making things. I don't really think about the scope of things. I'm just doing it because you have to get it done. And she'd be like, remember how big it is. Remember the scope. You're in a foreign country. You're working with 3 languages. You're working with 3 teams. It's an international. It's your first. You're working with a cast of over 20 people. It's a lot.
It is.
And it was helpful to put into perspective on days where I was like, this is really hard. She's like, of course it's hard.
Yes.
Like, so it was helpful to hear, like, remember the scope of your project. And you don't want to think about it all the time because you're like, that is a lot.
Yeah.
By the end, you don't know how to start processing what you just finished. And, like, post is its whole other beast, which we haven't started yet. But it's been healing to be here to be able to talk about, like, here's my perspectives and my take on everything, because when you're directing, it's not about you. It's about making sure your crew and your cast and everybody's okay. And they're looking to you as this leader to carry them through. And there's a lot of them. You have over 40, 50 people that you're carrying. And my job is not to be like, here's how I feel about everything. It's to just make sure that it's moving. And so to be able to say, like, well, here's actually what I was going through that I can't really tell anybody has been really helpful to let it go a little bit.
Yeah. You say 40 to 50 people. What was the biggest set that you had run before that? Was that like...
No, like, is this like the biggest team, or like, is there...
Yeah.
I think this one was probably the most amount of people, but not by a big stretch. Like, because I had done theater shows that had, a lot of people in them. So running teams that big. But one thing I find to be really important is to know everybody's name and to talk to all of the crew members.
Stars.
So I actually knew everybody's name
Nice.
on the set. I knew a little bit about them. Like, I would make it a point
All of
to
your
like
Taiwanese crew,
Yeah.
everybody.
like
Wow.
go talk to gaffers. Go
Mhm.
like, I'd always like sidle up to like people that would be like, "You're talking to me?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Well, yeah, like because, like our sound guys or like our people who are just kind of or like our PAs,
Mhm.
it's really important because those people they do a lot of work and
Mhm.
just knowing somebody's name, that's huge."
I think it's going to speak huge to them too. It really does go a long way.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that you never know where that is going to lead, and yes, that's the strategy part of it. But I think there's something intrinsic within all of us that is just like acknowledgement and gratitude. It's something that, yes, it's nice to receive, but it's very important to give as a leader because it reminds us that it's not just our project. It's something that's important on both sides to both give and receive. Yeah.
I think it plays a lot into, the intercultural part of it
especially,
because you're working with Taiwanese and their culture is different. Their culture is very much in like saving face and making sure
Very
like they're,
much.
like,
Very much so.
And I know this coming in, which is really helpful because instead of fully being unaware of like what people are thinking, like I know that they think like this, even if they're kind of more westernized in a way.
Yeah.
I know that they need to hear that they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And most people do, but in this case it was more like, like our gaffers had never actually worked on a film. They'd done a lot, but they hadn't done film work, and they were so happy to be there just shooting, like creating like narrative work, which was so fun. But I'd go up to them and they played like a really big part for me mentally, so I always go back to like the gaffers because like they every day they'd come off just so happy, and it would always bring me up again. And I'd be like, okay, the gaffers are happy. They're just carrying stuff around all day. But I would talk, you go talk to them and be like, hey, this is really, really good. And they'd be like, really? I'm like, yeah, I would bring you to America to do this. They're like, really? I'm like, yes, but it's small little compliments that are like, you're doing a good job, or like specific things like you do really well at doing this.
Yeah.
And that tells them like I'm not just thinking of you as a crew, like I see you as a human being, and I am interested in what you're doing, and also here to tell you like you are doing a really good job. And in this culture specifically, like it was really helpful because then they're like, oh, I'm good at this. I was hired to do this job, and they'll work even harder. And when we do get to really tough points where I'm like, this is really hard and I'm really sorry, but I'm going to ask you to do this anyway. And they're like, okay.
So, fun fact, in Mandarin, I don't know if it's the same for Taiwanese, but in Mandarin, there is actually not a word for no.
Yes.
Like the closest that you can come is, I don't want that.
Yep.
It's more a yes, that will happen, and then it won't.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yes,
and so, like, having to bridge, like, these intercultural communications is, like, fun. So, like, did you have a personal translator, or did you have, like, you had more of, like, a first AD? I think you had mentioned something like that in the panel.
Yeah. So, a lot of our crew was actually bilingual, which is really
nice.
helpful.
Yeah,
really helpful.
Nice.
But even then, like, they are bilingual, but that doesn't mean they're fluent. So, it is helpful because you can communicate on a basic level, especially within their job, to be like sound. You could be like, are we good? Did we get a good take? And, he might not be able to speak very well, but he does understand what I'm saying to him. And he's like, yeah, we got it. Or he can be like, this is bad. Like, our sound guy was hilarious. The two of us, eye contact across the room, and he'd be like, no. And I'm like, no, just let it go. And like, would be like gesturing to him. I'm like, it's okay. And he's like, it's so funny. I find that even with the language barrier, like, humans communicate like humans. I mean, I mean, you can communicate a lot without language. My AD was my primary translator specifically for our student actors, because most crew, there were certain crew members that I'd be like, go tell them what I said, because they didn't speak as well. But our kid cast, or like our full like student cast, most of them spoke okay, but not well. So if I would say, I would give them a direction and they'd be like, okay, and then like I'd be like, are you sure? They're like, and then we'd run the scene and I'm like, they do it exactly the same. I'm like, you don't get it. I'm like, okay. So finally I just, with the AD, just in general to blanket, I would say, I'm going to say a direction and you're going to repeat. He's like, okay. And this is how we would do it, because even if they understand, now it's clarified that where communication's fully open, it has been clarified in English and Mandarin to everyone, so everyone gets it, both American and Taiwanese teams.
So this naturally brings up kind of the things that can go wrong.
I know there was one day where, again, our gaffers, I loved our gaffers, man, but like I can't understand a lot of the problems that happened within those teams because they're in Mandarin and the AD had already fixed them. Bless his heart. Yeah. So, you know, at the end of the day, he'd be like, yeah, this was rough. And I'm like, it was not rough. He's like, but it was. But you don't know that. And I'm like, exactly. But our gaffers, I know one day, like, there was a miscommunication with what we were doing.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't quite gotten the system down. So they lit one thing and we were like, no, we're going back. You know, and even with like the DP sometimes, I'd be like, we're staying here. And somehow I wasn't clear. A lot of it, like, I'll take responsibility for it because, you know, it's my set that I'm running. And I'm like, oh, my bad. So, like, you know, they're like, we got to relight this scene again. And like, gaffers would be like, and they come back up. And they light it. But there was one day where they like lit something and tore it down. And then we had to switch scenes around because of something. He back up and light it again, like, and then we'd be like, oh, we're not lighting up there. A lot of their gear's going up and down 3 stories because we're on the 3rd floor of this school. And I definitely was like, you guys are doing a good job. And they were like, okay. And then they were fine. But a lot of the blunders we had as far as like miscommunicating were things that surprisingly you would normally have within teams running. It's just people either thinking they know what you're going to say already and they just do things, which you can't do that. Or me thinking like I had communicated well and it really helped as a first timer. It's just like, oh, I can do this better. Okay. And you mess up and you kick yourself a little bit and you're like, ugh. And you're like, okay, I'll do it better tomorrow. And then you learn as you go. Every day is like extremely intense boot camp. Like you've done this for a while, but every day you're being hit with so much information, and not only are you running creatively, but you're also like, ooh, I can adjust here and here and here and here, and every day is just massive amounts of new information that you're trying to process and put places and apply again so your next day is better. And I think like really importantly for people who are first timers to know is like, you're gonna mess up, it's gonna feel really bad, just make the adjustments and move on because your team probably knows you're a first timer and it's okay. And there's grace for you there.
Yeah.
You don't know how much power you have as director, but it took me a minute to realize, like, if I was like, I don't really like this, everybody would be like, oh no, the director's unhappy. How do we fix it? And I was like, well, that's cool. I mean, I'm not going to lord it over you, but like, but like it was the first time that I was like, you know, it took me a really long time to come into owning the set myself. Because we know like America was really tough and I walked off like pretty defeated. And then coming into Taiwan, I was like, oh no, I'm going to change everything that happened here. I'm going to change it and go over there. But it's finding like the dynamic between like, where do you belong? Like you are the head, you're driving it, but then like, you know, you are dealing with producers and with studios and with execs, and like, how do you do what they want? And how do you take those voices out of your head? Because ultimately, like, unless they're like, something is really horribly wrong and on fire, it doesn't matter because they've hired you to be the leader. So if I had to really step back and think like, okay, I need to do what I feel is right in this situation. Of course, there's people looking over your shoulder being like, you know, everybody thinks that they're the director at some point. Yeah. So fighting for that status and holding it was tough. But unless I do something horribly wrong that is not going to work, which didn't really happen, that you have to like take those voices out of your head and be like, they hired me to do this. And that was something like one of the execs like told me at the beginning from Sony, you know, was like, you're the captain. Of course you have admirals. I'm an admiral, you know, Steve's an admiral. Everybody's an admiral. Yeah. But you're the one on the ship actually guiding the ship in the middle of the war you're in, and that's your job. And we're not there to micromanage you. We're there to make sure that your ship doesn't necessarily go down or you make a strategic bad move that brings your whole ship down. So that was really hard for me to come to terms with at some points.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious how this is going to age if you listen to this in 5-10 years after, directing, or even if like
Sure.
an experienced director is listening to this and being like, oh, honey.
I know, right? I'm like, someone's going to be like, that's not how it is.
Oh, honey, like, or just like within that political dynamic of, like with execs, having been a producer now and working with a director, it's so funny. You have that typical push and pull of just like, we spent money on this, we want to see it.
Yeah, yes.
And so like, I get that side of things. And then, you have the director who, like thankfully has a vision of what they want. But if it doesn't include those things that you spent money on, you're just like, wow, the budget. When a sailboat is tacking, like it's producers, directors. But you know what? At the end, if you can end up at your destination, then it's somewhere near the island that you are aiming for, then I think it's a win. But you don't know how long it's going to be in one direction and, kind of changing that power from like the tack from left to right to left to right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I try to be as conscious of like what producers' jobs are as well.
Yeah.
So, I'm really budget conscious as far as like, can I do this thing? Like I want to do this thing, but if the producer comes back to me and is like, we can't afford it, find a different way. I'm like, cool, that's a whole new problem and challenge and like
and it's a creative challenge
it's going to creatively add something.
Yeah.
In this project, there were definitely scenes that were brought back into it that I was like, I'm not a fan of this scene, but this was a studio thing that was like, we need to see this.
Yeah.
And the studio's like, you're going to shoot this. And I'm like, I don't want to shoot it because I don't like it. But you have to find a way to be like, okay, regardless of like whether I like it or not, I'm going to make it look the best that it can because it's not about me. It's about like, if I like, I guess like half-ass the scene, it's going to make the rest of my movie look bad. And that just hurts me and the studios and, and so being aware, I think, you could like flex if you want to and be like, I want this thing, but that really isn't collaborative and it doesn't help anyone to do that. So, when studios or my producers or anybody come to me and say, hey, I think we need to like do this, then I'll be like, well, what if we do it this way? Or like collaborate with them. And am I extremely happy? Not necessarily. But I'm not going to, it's like, you have to do this. Okay, cool, fine. Then let's do it.
They are specifically business oriented, and a bottom line. And in a lot of ways, it's just like they could care less about any heart, but is it going to sell? And I mean, honestly, if it sells, then it works.
Right.
And
that was something.
It's like Hallmark.
That was one of those things where, I was writing this thing and it has some like romance in it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stay really true to culturally. And so this is another thing where, it comes in and we're working in a culture. The movie, the script is very cultural. Like it's very like sticking very true to Taiwan and how those people are and the culture within that. And so one of the things we really had to like go back and forth on was that romantic interest throughout because, they'd be like, well, he's going to run in here and like do this. And I'm like, no, he would never do that because that's culturally incorrect and it doesn't work. And so there were a lot of moments where I would push back being like, I know that this is something that you want to do because it works. And you've seen it work in other things, but this won't work in this culture because that's not correct. So in a lot of ways, they were really respectful of that when I was like, this isn't culturally correct. They'd be like, okay. And I would come in with an alternative, like, here's more, and how do I give enough to hook, because you're trying to hook American audiences while staying culturally true.
Yeah, but you're also wanting to market. Didn't you say your main market that you're wanting to aim for is the Asian market?
Yeah, I would love to. The movie, to me, was always my love letter to Taiwan. So ultimately, like, I made it for Taiwan, for Taiwanese to be able to watch and be like, feel proud of like their culture. And as an American looking in, being like, I love this culture. Like, it's just not been seen a lot. And I wanted to be really authentic to it. There is one scene that I pushed back on. If you live there, and I won't say which scene because the people there will know. Our Americans will probably not know, honestly. But it was one of those scenes where you're like, you're filming it and your entire crew is like, this would never happen. And I'm like, you guys, I know it wouldn't happen, okay? But the studio says I have to do it this way. In one sense of it, you're like, I'm trying to play to an American audience as well to make sure that they like, and to then make a sufficiently like enough drama for them to be like, oh my gosh, but like, also you have your crew being like, this is ridiculous, and you're like, I know it is, but you're trying to also save your own face while shooting it and reassuring them like, I understand culturally this is not, America will not, and they need this, and trying to make them understand while shooting it so that you don't lose face as misappropriating like what would happen. And there was one scene like that where I did push back, but ultimately, like, I accepted it because I think it will play to American audiences. The Taiwanese audiences will watch it and be like, this is hilarious. I'm a little worried about that. But I can't please all the cultures, I don't think. I've tried.
Is there anything else that you actually want to remember? Like, what's your next deadline then?
May 16th, we deliver our first rough cut.
What?
Yeah, to studios. Meaning, like, it's not just like, you don't have the time to do just like rough assemblies. Like, it isn't going to look good. You have to give the studio something that looks even somewhat polished because you only get 3 shots at this. Like, I get 2 rough cuts and picture lock, and that's it. So the turnaround on post is really intense.
Wow.
So
with music and everything too?
Picture lock, no. Luckily, no. I'm worried about just editing a full-length feature film. To... because normally you could be like, here's kind of my roughest rough, and then I get
my
like,
symbol.
Yeah, here you go. And this is a rough, but a polished rough, because then we have about 3 weeks, I think, and then it's second cut with all of their notes implemented, and and that one's got to be sharp, and then we have a month before full picture lock is due, and that time frame, like, is totally doable, but sometimes if I look at it like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. Woo. And it has to have a certain quality because you're not you're sending it to Sony. Like, you have to. And luckily, bless, our footage, Taiwan is stunning. The location is stunning. Our actors are on point. And so even if I turned in like a rough, I'm not as worried about, like, I know there's going to be a Dark Night of the Soul coming up, but like, I'm not as worried about being like, my rough cut is just horrible, because even the raw footage is like, there's so much to work with. It's beautiful.
And they'll see that. They see lots of roughs, I'm guessing, so.
Oh yeah, totally. But you only get two takes, and then you're picture locking, which that to me is like, and it's scary because you have to finalize, and once you do, it's locked in forever.
You say May 16? That is like, that's 5 weeks away. 5 weeks away.
Yeah.
Dang.
And currently where it stands, it's not assembled in any form, so it's being built from the ground up starting on Monday.
Okay, so no, like, editors weren't working
not between the times we've, which in future I think that will be something that I'm really like, we need to lock that down, because it's
100%.
It's stressful right now being like, ooh, you're on the edge of post. And so it's hard because it's so close to, like, you want to like have time to process it. You have these massive deadlines that are due. And when do you process? And so it's been nice to be at Sunscreen to be able to just talk about what happened and the experiences and kind of air it out a little bit, because I will go directly into an edit bay and not see light for 2 months and hopefully, not lose my mind in there. But there is a level of like, you start thinking like, okay, your brain can't let you celebrate at all because you're not done, and you have to grind, and you have to stay in that grind mode. And on top of it, like, you have to be willing out the gate to kill the darlings that come. And so I don't have time to be like, but this scene, like, I have to be brutal when I'm chopping, and I've already started like mentally preparing to think creatively on one side, but like, if it has to be chopped out, like, we chop it out. And that's fine.
Yeah.
So, I don't give myself any grace in that area. Like, if we have to chop it out, if there is something where I'm like, no, this is like, we are not cutting this, then I will put my foot down. But if it comes down to like, this is a really hard decision, then we make that decision quickly.
Good. I mean, and honestly, this is a stage for that. So,
Whew.
so how can we follow this journey?
Oh, man.
Besides listening to this podcast.
Of course.
Awesome podcast.
No, I love this podcast. It helps me so much because I'm like, there's other people out there.
There are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to be more active on like social medias, on Instagram, being like, here's where I'm at, because I am trying to be more real about how this journey goes. Because people think that in one sense, they're like, filmmaking is so glamorous and I'm like, oh no, like, everybody's like, we want to be a director. And I'm like, but do you? Because it's not
really.
It's not glamorous. It's really fun, but it is really, really, really hard. And I know everybody's like, well, everybody says that. But until you've really felt like it's excruciating. It is. And
you also get all the blame too.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, everything that goes wrong is like you, and you just have to own it, because otherwise nothing will happen. And I hate the blame game. Like, anybody on set who's like, well, this person did it, it's not my fault. I'm like, then I did it, and you're just going to move on, because I don't have time for you to go figuring out who did it. I don't care who did it wrong. Just fix it.
Yeah, let's move to like a solution-based approach here.
Yeah. And one of the big themes throughout shooting that I was really appreciative of, because we were working with Luke Cameron at Stone Soup Productions in Taiwan, in his production company, and he was just so like amazing, because he has all this energy, and he's always like, and you'd come to him and be like, this is a really big problem, and he'd be like, okay, like, we're just solving problems, that's what we're doing, like everything is just solving a problem. And he was so positive about just everything that happened, even like the biggest things, or like things that seemed like really dark or unattainable. He was always that light that came in and was like, it's okay, we're just gonna solve problems.
Nice.
And I love that mentality of, we're just solving problems. It's not gonna destroy us, it's not going to be the end of the world, it's just, here's a problem, how do I fix it?
Yeah.
And how do I fix it quickly? And I love that mentality, because it keeps everything from becoming a blame game or becoming a really negative experience for everybody, because it doesn't matter. It's just its own thing that needs to be fixed. So I really appreciated him throughout the process, because he's just, that man can just go. I'd be like, Luke, are you really tired? He's like, yeah, but it's fine, and like continue on. And I'm like, what an inspiration.
Well, we can't wait to get the next check-in and see how you're doing, see how the project's progressing. And thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely happy to be here.
All right.
Thank you for documenting the journey. It's been very helpful. It is amazing to have a platform to be like, listen to me talk about my life and my experiences.
Welcome to the Practical Therapist.
Yes, it is therapy. I was like, oh, good. It's not my week for therapy. Okay, I'll just go to Tanya. Tanya will therapize me. I'll be able to air it all out and be okay for like 2 more days.
We can't wait. If you enjoyed this interview, follow us right here and on Instagram, ask us questions, and check out more episodes at thepracticalfilmmaker.com. Be well and God bless. We'll see you next time on The Practical Filmmaker.